Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to give you some highlights of some really hot topics that have both people who are relocating here asking questions, as well as, of course, us locals. Part of that is going to be covering, of course, the annexing of certain areas within Southwest Washington into the city of Vancouver. What is that going to mean for homeowners as well as future homeowners, as well as what builders are going to be doing as they're projecting for the future because of the cost of building, land, and limited space. And I want to give you a little hint here. Some of the other videos that I started last year talking about some of these changes that were coming down the pike and that were passed, well, builders are taking advantage of it. So we are going to talk about some of those issues right now, and you'll want to stay tuned because I'm going to get after it now. I'm Shastine, and if this is your first time here, thank you so much for joining me. I am a local real estate agent giving information to those who live in the area or that are relocating into the area on everything that has to do with living, buying, investing here in Southwest Washington. Of course, because as a real estate agent, I would love to offer value and hopefully one day meet you and work with you. Until then, I hope you find this information helpful and certainly reach out. All of my information is below. You can call me, text me, or email me. I help a lot of people relocate. Would love to help you. More importantly, you're going to want to know what is going on in Southwest Washington besides the fact that we're a little bit more expensive here than other states. So all that to be said, affordability starting to be an issue. With Washington topping over 8 million in population, which, mind you, was an increase of 1.3% from 2023 to 2024, naturally, the city of Vancouver, Washington is needing to project for future growth continuing forward. Some statistics indicate that on average annually for the whole state of Washington, we see around 69,000 people move here. So because of that, the infrastructure alone has to be able to expand to, of course, incorporate those new beautiful human beings. That, of course, means that they have to do things that will allow for more space for those people to move here. Naturally, with people moving to Southwest Washington, that's going to affect our roads, affect the type of services in our communities, like firefighters, police officers, as well as housing. So those, of course, are in the two main topics that I'm going to talk about now. And I'm going to sprinkle in a couple other things regarding the law changes, which is exactly what the builders are going to be tapping into moving forward to help with the influx of people that we are looking at receiving within the next number of years. And of course, how we're going to be able to keep the infrastructure strong and be able to keep affordability low. Although I feel like that's going to be a little bit harder to do. But here are just a few things that are going on right now that will probably affect you one way or another. Some in larger ways and others not so much. With people moving here, naturally, they need a place to live. So the number one thing, of course, that Southwest Washington did was to bring some panelists in and really talk about the issues. And of course, that involved developers, builders, and agencies. One of them, of course, being the Affordable Housing Agency, because that is a very hot topic here in Southwest Washington with affordability, well, kind of becoming unaffordable. And if you watch any of my other videos, I talk a lot regarding just the average medium home price. Different areas of Southwest Washington will get you different prices, but on average, overall, here in Southwest Washington, a single family home is going to be in the low 500s, and it doesn't mean that you're getting a lot of square footage. So in this panel, what were the builders saying exactly on how they're going to remedy or make space for people who are moving into the area or just families that currently live here and are expanding? And one of the things that they talked about was going back to, hint, hint, what I did a video on before, is going back to high density building. And if you remember, we talked about the two bills that changed, the ADU bill and the middle housing bill. And you might be a little sick of hearing it, but it's important because it's affecting and will continue to affect current subdivisions here in Southwest Washington, but will also help relieve some people who are just wanting to get into home ownership and need to still have it be affordable somewhat. And so instead of building a single family home on maybe one lot, what they're doing is developers are now looking at building 15 smaller homes that can be more cost efficient on that same size of lot. Now, mind you, this is probably going to look like row houses, things that are very close, very tall and skinny. So we're going to see more 3-level homes detached a little bit, maybe by 3 feet, mind you. So they're not considered a townhome attached by a party wall. For some people, that's better than that townhome and they'll take it. And so they're looking to do more high density build. And of course, remember the other one I talked about, which was the middle housing build. That means that they're actually looking at building those garden apartments that I was talking about in that middle housing build video that I did probably about a couple years ago. And that's gonna allow them to build more of a smaller kind of apartment complex in residential communities. And now, of course, there's some guidelines, but the fact is they can still do it. And so they're looking to incorporate that, more of the middle housing build developments, as well as high density row house types, small cottage types, even kind of the tiny home communities. We have a few of those here in Southwest Washington now, just really anything from 600 to 900 square foot little tiny homes, in which people who own homes on nice big pieces of acreage, they're calling those ADUs, right? Because those are just kind of like that secondary home for grandma, grandpa, returning college kids, or to subsidize. But builders are actually making them into communities for affordability purposes. Now, the one thing I do want to note here is when it comes to new construction, right now, currently, new construction was noted to be around $309 a square foot. And that is far above the national average of around $173 a square foot. So it is absolutely more expensive to build new construction here in Southwest Washington. I always tell my clients it is much better to get into a pre-existing home where you can have more of a yard, more space between neighbors, and you can just refurbish it. Whether you want to just resand down the cabinets, or you can actually remodel it. But either way, you're going to have some pluses with the pre-existing versus a new construction. And not everything on the major components of a pre-existing will you have to actually redo. So a lot of homes, they may already have that roof done. They may already have, brand new siding put on, brand new furnace, things like that. So it's not as if all of the major components that are the expensive items you will have to be replacing because it's pre-existing. So it's a good idea to look at both. Do I think that maybe new construction may go down? Well, you may see some adjustments on the price of homes with new construction. But usually if you pay close attention, that will be on homes that the builders already completed, because once they get that certificate of occupancy, it starts to actually affect their pocketbook. So that's where you'll see those special incentives, the larger price reductions. That also means that usually the best lots, they're gone. Sometimes the best floor plans have already sold, so there comes a price with that. However, another thing in which these panelists that got together spoke about, that they also were worried would only continue to cause the price per square foot to go up, is the cost of lumber. And the future issue going on with the tariffs that are between the US and Canada, they have them absolutely concerned that that will affect the price of the lumber. So we can see some of the concerns from the building side as far as housing. But it also naturally affects the infrastructure of the area. So what do we see going on right now that is a very hot topic to naturally be a solution to the growing population? And that is where this next little hot topic comes to play. There are a lot of people watching the city of Vancouver as they went into some heavy talks regarding the urban boundary growth. And right now they're considering on annexing in a large area into the city of Vancouver, which will ultimately affect taxpayers' pockets. For those of you who don't live here, what that means is that there are regions on the outside of the city of Vancouver that are currently controlled by the county, but that can be annexed into the city as a measure to help the population growth. And of course, because we're growing, they're naturally having to take a look at this. The problem that residents have is how they're looking to do it, because they're actually talking about doing it in one fell swoop. You see, in 1990, when Washington adopted the Growth Management Act, it was adopted with the idea that they would bring in the urban boundary growth areas over time. Well, now they're considering bringing the whole enchilada into the city of Vancouver. And what that means for those residents that encompass the 56 square miles around the city of Vancouver, those 171,000 residents that are going to be brought in, well, they're going to be affected by some taxes, because after all, there has to be some sort of way to pay for the public roads, for the schools, for firefighters, police, all those things that have to be supported by that infrastructure. And mind you, why would they look to want to bring all of it in at once? They're looking to do that because, well, since 1990, a lot of those little fields have turned into some flourishing communities of taxpayers. And of course, the city does not want to miss out on more growth by waiting to annex in those areas. So they're looking to want to annex in a lot more than just a few. Now, naturally, there was a lot of people that did oppose that. If they did it all at once, it would, for one, cause a huge deficit. And number two, I think that would cause more of an uproar. So I think they're wanting to do it sooner than later, and they will do it over time for sure. So it is something that's coming. Right now, what they're trying to decide upon is if they're going to annex in just a certain section of area that would not cause a deficit, but still accomplish their funds that are needed for, further strengthening of the infrastructure of the city of Vancouver. By doing that, they're going to bring in a smaller number of residents, but still meet some of their desired goals. In the end, what this does is it can actually lead into increased property values and, of course, higher property taxes. These hot topic items are still saying the same thing. They're still pointing that home values are going to be increasing, or if you're paying a little bit less, you're getting a lot less when it comes to projection of where Washington is going. But let me just show you some current stats here in the mid-month of March. So let's take a look at this graph here. As of March 14th through the 20th, when they compare one week from the other, you can see very clearly that our new listings are down 2.4%. which means we're still kind of a little slow right now. What I do want you to note is the pending sales. Pending sales have gone up though, 3.3%. Our average sales price, ouch, has gone up 0.6%. Can you believe our average sale price is at $604,700? Crazy. Median sales price, that means overall in one area, kind of like the grading average, is down 3.5%. That is going to be pertinent to what is going on in specific areas. That's as a whole. And so that is not homes that are selling. That is homes that are just off market as a whole, just so that you know. And then of course, closed sales are up. People want to buy homes, 61.8% from last week versus this March through the 14th through the 20th. So this is just a quick little snippet, but all of this is an indicator that property values are moving up still, not dropping. Not every state is the same. Not everything is going to be happening the same way across the US. So here in Washington right now, if we're having adjustments in prices, it's only because certain sellers have to sell and they were a little bit more optimistic on their pricing when they first listed it, or builders who weren't able to sell their property prior to that certificate of occupancy. So once that builder gets that certificate of occupancy, it starts to cost them in their pocket and they're willing to discount the price more or give incentives more willingly, should I say, than they would if it was still at the dirt phase. So it's very important to be connected to a real estate agent, very important to be able to keep a pulse on what the market's doing. And I hope that this channel helps you with that. I hope to meet you one day. I do appreciate you for watching. And until next time, I hope you have a great home buying and selling day.